Tony Gray is a virtuoso bass player who works as a super sideman, a solo artist, and as founder of the Tony Gray Bass Academy. He first came to my attention as bass player for the superstar virtuoso jazz pianist Hiromi, and boy did he come to my attention. Tony has a really inspirational backstory, and today I'll be sitting down to chat with him about how his entire musical life and success is a result of overcoming adversity in all of its different forms. Hopefully, Tony can be an inspiration to you and motivate you to keep your dreams bigger than your fears. Enjoy! You are... Well, how would you describe you? You're a kind of super sideman, and you've got a kind of solo career as well, but you've also got the Tony Gray Bass Academy. We'll get back to that in a minute. But I want to start with your super cool story of how you got started, because you got started pretty late. What age are we going back to there? About 18?
Yeah, I started playing when I was 19. 19, just going on 20.
Yeah. And you'd had... It was after was it a car accident that you'd had?
Yeah, I was a DJ, like drum and bass music in Newcastle, and I used to love it. And all these guys would come over to my house, and I would just mix records, and I would go to parties and play in clubs and all kinds of stuff. And it wasn't really going anywhere for my parents. They were not really feeling that career choice. So I decided to get myself together. The first thing I wanted to do, I wanted to be a fireman. Actually, it was really random. I had this obsession. I wanted to be a fireman. I was kind of one of these kids that just didn't really have a lot of ambition at the time, like a lot of drive. I didn't have a lot of goals, you know. I wanted to be a fireman. I didn't really know how to make that happen. I had low self-esteem. Didn't feel so good about myself. Wasn't very fit. So I was like, oh, wait, what's the best thing that's going to kick my ass, you know, like what's going to get me going a bit? So I decided to join the army, which is a very random choice for me to do. But I knew it would get me healthy. I knew it would get me fit. I knew it would make me feel good about myself. I knew it would make me a good team player. And I knew that once I'd left, I was going in as short term as possible. And once I'd left, I would have gained some skills, and then I would be able to be a fireman. I signed up for the army. I did all the initial training and stuff. Signed a declaration to the Queen saying I would die for my country and all that. Jumped on a train randomly to celebrate with a friend down south in Stafford. The train broke down. Friend picked me up. On the way to our house, crashed the car, broke my back, got medically discharged from the army immediately. And then it was my stepfather brought me home a bass guitar. He just picked one up in a store, like a secondhand store. And I just started practicing. I didn't know anything about bass. And I just kind of got into it, and I was practicing. I got obsessed with it because it became my medicine, you know. I just could lock myself away with it.
Well, how long, because, I mean, that's a pretty big thing to do, break your back. How long were you in hospital for?
For months, for a long time. I had to learn how to walk again. I was in a wheelchair for a while. It was pretty bad. So when I came back out of hospital, I was kind of locked up at home for quite a few months as well. For I don't even know, 6-7 months. Loads of physio, a big cast, it looked like an American footballer.
Yeah.
I was just stuck really. And
you'd never thought about playing any instruments before that?
I played piano when I was a little kid. My mum kind of made me do it. From the age of 4 till 13 was when I had a choice whether I wanted to do it or not. So obviously I didn't want to do it because I wanted to play football. You know, I wanted to be like Gaza.
Of course, yeah.
So I was like, I'm not doing the music anymore. It wasn't fun, you know. There was no creativity in the lessons. It was just kind of do this, do this, do that. It doesn't sound good. Do it again.
So what bass was it that you got? Was it just any old bass that you just got handed?
Oh, yeah. It was I can't even remember. It was probably the most awful thing on earth. I remember I upgraded and got another one that was like just as bad. And then I stripped the paint off it and tried to make it like look better, and I just destroyed it.
So I guess you kind of, because from what I know about you, it wasn't a massive amount of time after that you actually went to Berkeley.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you must have really shed.
I did. I was practicing like 12 hours a day, religiously. If I missed an hour, I would go to bed an hour later. If I had to go out, sometimes I would have to do family things. A couple hours, I would always make a note of it, and then I would sometimes stay awake till 7 o'clock in the morning to do it. And then I would go to bed for a few hours, wake up and do it again. And
Obsessive.
It was like, yeah, very unhealthy actually. I remember seeing the milkman. I remember practicing in the living room, and I would see the milkman come with the milk in the morning. I hadn't gone to bed yet.
Oh man! So you, I mean, at what level? Well, how long after that was it that you enrolled at Berkeley?
Probably a year.
Really?
Around about a year, I would say. Like, it was very lucky. It was extremely lucky, more than talent, I would say. Like, back in the day, I had no clue what a bass was. I didn't know what it did, how it functioned. I knew one thing about bass guitar, and that was Mark King. It's the only thing I knew about bass guitar.
Yeah.
Because I had a buddy who like level 42, so he was always like doing this stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, that's amazing. I found a music store in Newcastle that had like a Charlie Parker Omnibook. I didn't know who Charlie Parker was. I had no idea what his music was about. I had no idea anything about it. I just got the book to learn how to read music and kind of give myself, it looked hard, so I'm like, all right, grabbed a lot of notes, grabbed it, learned a solo. I learned Scrapple from the Apple, something like that. Learned the melody, learned the solo, played the solo. I got the solo up to tempo, recorded it, sent it to John McLaughlin, who I'll explain that whole connection in a minute. And then he was like, holy shit, you got to go to America. No. I don't think he even knew. I think he probably thought I was improvising it.
And you'd never even heard of Charlie Parker?
No, I'd never really even heard John McLaughlin's music.
Right.
I hadn't heard anything. I just saw that book and I had nothing else to do. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to learn this and I'm going to play it and I'm going to make sure that I just got it and got it. I worked on it and I eventually got it and then played it. And I'm not very good at like listening to myself as I'm playing it. So I don't know if it sounds impressive or not. I'm just so into the action of doing it. But I guess when somebody listened to it, they're like, Jesus, that's amazing.
I know about your John McLaughlin connection, but that is quite key, I suppose, in some ways. So what's your connection to John McLaughlin?
Well, he's my uncle, and I knew he was, but I didn't know what he did. I knew he was a guitarist. I knew he was famous. When I was very little, I would get like a gift, like a great gift, like big Lego set or a big this or that. It was always from him, you know? I was just like, who's this mystery kind of guy who always gives me killing Christmas presents, you know?
And had you not met him very often as a kid?
I'd met him as a kid a bunch of times, but I never really paid attention to it. I remember being around Shakti. I remember them being at my house at one point. So many memories of this stuff. I had one of his guitars. I had an acoustic guitar of his. So there was definitely, like, him and my mom are pretty close. So there's all of this stuff. He was around. Like, I felt like he was there. It was always like remind, oh, that's John's guitar, this, that. But that's about it.
If you're not a musician, it's not really going to make as much sense, really, is it? It's like, I suppose, later on it did.
And you're too young to even care, you know. If he was a footballer, then maybe, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a jazz guitarist, you know. So my dad was like, oh, you should let John hear you play. And I'm like, whatever. So I remember he got me a little Fostex. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Fostex. The digital, the 4-tracks. Yeah.
Got me one of them, and I recorded like this Charlie Parker thing. And then I recorded some Motown groove that I'd learned. And I put on a cassette and sent it to him. Or my dad sent it to him, and he called me up on the phone and, hey, Tony, this is John. I heard you're into music, man. Come in come and hang with me, man. So he was in Scotland. I think he was in Edinburgh with Joey DeFrancisco and Dennis Chambers.
Mm-hmm.
So I went up to see him with my dad, and watched the concert, and I'm like, holy cow, it's pretty amazing. And then I got in the bus with him, and I met Dennis Chambers in the hotel. He was at the bar. I just walked in. I was like, hey, how's it going? He was like, hey, what's up? And I got on the bus with him, and I never met or heard these guys before, and they were really kind, and they were talking stories, and I just loved the camaraderie of it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed, like, it was exciting that they're traveling, and the audience loved it, and he was respected and seemed very classy guy, like very like gentleman, like wonderful guy, really.
Yeah.
And then he just looked at me, and I was like, we were standing in the lobby of the hotel just outside his room, and he went, how old are you? And I was like, well, I'm 19. And I said, I'm not too old to learn. And he looked me dead in the eye, and he was just like, this time. That's all he said, is this time.
Yeah.
And later on, I went to realize that instruments are a physical thing, but music's in here,
yeah.
and it's in here, and it comes from courage, and it comes from willing to be vulnerable and put yourself out there. And any physical thing can be learned and mastered, but the ability to get this out with conviction and honesty is something we can all do, because we've grown up loving music and being affected emotionally by it. So it's already a part of us. As soon as we put an instrument in our hands, we lose that connection, go, oh, this is too difficult. Oh, my hands hurt. Oh, my hand's too small. This, all these...
Caught up in the physicality of it, yeah.
Yeah, we get distracted, and then we become more in tune with, like, where the heck am I? What is this? What is that? And then we lose all of that connection that we've got our entire life. That's what he meant by this time.
Yeah. And did he have a big influence on you at the start when you were, when you were shedding and everything before you went to Berkeley?
Not really. In a sense, yes, and in a sense, no. In a sense, yes. He sent me all of his records, and he was like, you need to check out. I think he, like, when you're on his level and his age, I think it's easy to forget what it felt like to pick up the instrument for the first time.
Yeah.
He's very honest and brutal in that way, that can be very hurtful, but it's also tough love in a way, and you've got to be prepared to face what you can't do and hear what you don't want to hear in order for you to grow. So I'm good like that, but it's hurtful, but the hurt gives me strength to, like, okay, I don't want to, I'm going to prove it. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. So that was a good motivating factor then when you first started.
Yeah, I wrote him a song very quickly. I wrote him a song, and I stayed up all night to finish it because I knew he was coming to town, and I was just like, I'm going to give him this song. It's going to be killer. So I was up all night working on it, and I give it to him. He listened to it, and he was like, he was in such a good mood when he called me. He was like, hey, Tony, how's it going? I'm like, good. He's like, what are you up to? You working hard? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I had a chance to listen to your song. And I'm like, this is awesome. And he went, I was really disappointed. Holy, I was not expecting that. Like the way he said it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a record deal. I'm going to get a tour. Like, this is it. To be honest, I was really disappointed. I was expecting a lot more. I'm like, damn, you are harsh. That was like after 6 months of playing or something. So the way he encouraged me was he would call me up quite regularly from the road, from airports. Hey, I'm at this airport. I'm going here. I'm going there, which was really amazing looking back on it. And he would send me like Jacko. He sent me that Jacko DVD.
The instructional one.
Yeah, he sent me that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, check this out, blah, blah, blah. And then he sent me Take 6, a score of Take 6, the chords. He said, look at that, have a study that. Then he sent me a Coltrane solo on Oleo and said, hey, learn this. There was no chords on it or anything. I'm like, what the heck is this? I didn't know how to figure out what the chords were. I didn't know how to use my resources, so I was just a sheet of notes that I learned again, and then I'm like, all right, cool. But so it wasn't like hey, practice that scale, practice it. You know, you can do this over that chord. I would ask him, I'm like, how the heck do you guys do that stuff? And he went, oh, musicians have their tricks. They have their tricks. And that would be it. That would be the lesson. Like, it was really like in that way. But because he would give me these like little one-word answers, I would be always like, think deeper. Like, what do you mean they have their tricks? But now, years later, I'm like, I think he meant that. Like, I think he meant foundation is so important. Understanding the energy of music and the understanding of the energy of like alignment of the notes that you play, like as far as within the bar, like how they function, strong beat, weak beat, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like if your foundations are super intuitive and super locked in, then you can do anything you want to do. You can take its risks. You can go outside, inside, upside, downside, wherever you want to go, fast, slow, anywhere. Because as soon as if you can feel that and then bring it back because your foundation's so strong, I think that's what he meant by we all have our tricks.
Yeah.
Because you can do anything if you know how to bring it back.
Yeah. A year in, you then ended up enrolling at Berkeley. And did you stay the full course at Berkeley?
Yeah, I went there in 97. John Mayer was in my class. Like Gavin DeGraw, like looking back, like I'm like, wow, okay, I could see it now. I could see where he is.
Yeah.
Interactions at the time, I'm like, he's going somewhere.
Yeah.
Knew it, you know what I mean? So, my introduction to Berkeley was, I was petrified. I don't know what the heck was going on. I got placed in a good ensemble. I went to the ensemble to play. The teacher was like, okay, let's play a blues. Let's get acquainted. Counted it like a blues in F or whatever. Counted it off. I played an F and that was about as far as I got because I didn't know what a blues was. I didn't know how a bass should really function on that level. I was just like F, like, what? Like, and then the teacher was like, okay. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm really kind of a beginner. I don't know what I'm doing, you know, I'm blah, 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 blah. So one of the guitarists in the ensemble said, hey, I play bass. Do you mind if I play your bass? And I give him my bass. And he was just playing a walking bass line, like playing, everyone was having fun. I was just sitting there like an idiot, totally mortified. So then they repositioned me in the beginners ensemble. And my journey started there, but I was that bad. I was that bad, man. And I remember one drummer said to me, he called me up for a jam, and he was this Japanese kid. And he was like doing all these odd time stuff and all that. And I'm like, forget about that. I remember like literally after, and I realized people can be really honest. And like after about 5 minutes, he was just like, wow, I thought you were John McLaughlin's nephew, you can't play odd time sequences. And he kind of had a go at me, and I was just like, oh, sorry, I'm not very good.
Oh, no.
It was mortifying, man. And so I just locked myself in the room, I was like, all right, I need to catch up here. So I got myself a practice schedule that was doable. I think at that time it was like 6 hours a day, 6 hours, I would say. And then got to school on top of that and all the rest of it. I didn't really hang out with anybody. I didn't jam with anybody. I just literally practiced non-stop. And got better, but still kind of crap. And then the second year, I met a guy from Scotland. His name Alan Brown. Really character, you know, like total head case. And he created a balance for me because he liked to hang out. And so it brought me to a place where I was having more fun. I would practice all day, look forward to the evening, hang out with them guys, come back, practice. I still had my motivation, but I was like finding joy in being there because when I first went to Berkeley, I was incredibly anxious. I was like panic attacks all the time. I felt like sick, like I had to leave the room a couple of times. I was not in a good place in my mind. I was overwhelmed. I'd never really been abroad before. I was not with my family. Moving like I was comfortable at home. I had this goal, join the army, get myself fit, have a life, have a career. Got taken away, practiced the bass randomly, and then ended up in America. around all these cats who were like really obviously good and wanted to be there and had always wanted to be there. I was like not supposed to be there in my mind. I didn't want to be there. I never planned on being there. It was never a dream of mine. I'd never even heard of Berkeley when I was like applying for it. I'm like, what the heck is this place?
Yeah.
I'd never heard of it. And then 6 months later, I'm in it. And I'm like, wow, people have been saving up for this their entire lives, man. And I'm like, here, I feel privileged, but I didn't feel worthy. And people were looking down on me. And because of John McLaughlin, I felt the expectation was high on me. And I'm just like, what is going on? So I had a struggle that, do I even want to be a musician? Did I even have the choice to be a musician? It was all this like destiny kind of mindset. So I really struggled with that. And then I just decided to just go with it. Just go with it, man. See it through, see what happens. And then I met Alan, and then I started enjoying myself. I still sucked, but I was enjoying myself. He was really good, but he didn't judge me, and we were just having fun. He was encouraging. He didn't care who Mongo. He didn't care less. He just wanted to have a laugh. And then this band, or this management company came to Berkeley, and they wanted to audition drummers and bass players. And I was in school, and I had no intention of leaving. But he was only there for a year because it was part of his college course in Scotland. So he would just have to get some extra credit, and then he was going to graduate. So he was just a year, so he was just having a blast. I was there for the long term. This was my second year. And he said, hey, I'm doing this audition. Do you want to come and audition with me? And I was like, sure. And I didn't want the gig, and I wasn't going for the gig. But I said, I'll audition with you, because he liked to do jokes and juggling and all that, like stupid stuff on his drum kit that brings attention to himself. But we were a good team like that, because he could really like express himself around me. So I was like, all right, I'll do it with you. So I auditioned with him. He got the gig. They didn't even offer me the gig. But then like a week later, I got a phone call saying, hey, you guys were really fun together. Why don't you come to New York for a second audition? And I was like, oh, okay. So I went to New York, SIR Studios, and I went into this big white room where they filmed all these pop videos, Motley Crue. It was like a stadium stage. But it's a small room, and you can't, it's like all soundproof. It's really weird. Like you talk and it's like, wow, I never understood it.
Completely dead, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I've never experienced that before. So I'm on stage playing, and there's one guy sitting in the audience, and he's just sitting there with his arms folded, like looking at me. And I walked over to him, and he was just like, he said, go tanning, go get suntan. And one of his assistants was like, all right, I'll find a place for him, blah, 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 blah. So they took me to a tanning salon. Random stuff. Random. And then I came back and he went, now you're a pop star. So
and which band was it?
It was a band called Bliss. And like the thing is it was before internet and all that, you know what I mean? So it was like all very mysterious to me, you know what I mean? Because you don't know how things work, because it's like everything's marketing and very like, now it's like everything's overexposed, so you can see all the details and ins and outs of how the business works. But back then it was still very much a very like surreal, exciting dream kind of come true, like this dangling the carrot of success in front of you, and like, oh, you've just made it, man. Prepare yourself. We filmed a video for MTV in New York. We kind of, it was all very exciting and like promising, you know. And then the visa run out, and just before the visa ran out, they were like, okay, we're going to give you a contract, but we're going to meet you guys in Singapore. We're going to sort all that stuff out, so we'll meet you there. So they sent me and Alan to Singapore, and then the rest of the band came, and then we went to Thailand, got a hotel gig, like 15 weeks playing in the Sheraton in Bangkok, and learning all these pop tunes, sneaking in our originals, just basically rehearsing the band, getting the band to make money so they didn't have to spend money while they were building the marketing in the back.
What was the lineup?
It was 5 of us. There was a lead guitarist, a guitarist that sang piano, bass and drums.
Right, so a proper band thing as opposed to just a...
It was a boy band that actually played their instrument.
Right, yeah. Novelty acts. Boy band that plays.
it's funny because we ended up doing gigs where we were lip syncing. I'm like, hang on a minute. I remember doing a big concert in a mall in Singapore, and we would lip sync. They were like, "There's no time to rehearse, just pretend." We went up and just pretended, and like it was one of them moments where the tape freaking stopped.
Yeah. Oh. Oh.
It was that moment that you read about going impossible. It happened. I'm like, oh, and then it started again, and we're like, yeah. It was like the worst. So we were practicing in this club, getting our chops together, and then doing interviews. So like, hey guys, we've got to wake up early and do an interview for that magazine, for this. We're just oblivious to why or what. We're just kind of going along with it. And then all of a sudden the record released and we were famous. Like overnight, MTV, full rotation, leaving the hotel, like girls like this, going to the mall, people recognizing you and like mobbing you, getting on the airplane, getting recognized. Even now when I go over like to Japan or Thailand or something like that, a stewardess recognized me last time on the plane from the Bliss. And I'm like, really? Wow, I was so not aware of that. But the beautiful thing was, without realizing it, because I was still a beginner, I'd only been playing still a couple of years, and I was really struggling at school to keep up with anybody, and I would have graduated with no skills if I'd continued. Mm-hmm. So this is really a blessing in disguise. Well, it wasn't in disguise, it was like just a blessing, really. I was earning money, I was traveling around the world, I was filming videos, I was on TV shows, I was on radio, interviews, magazines, getting pictures taken, getting fans, getting this, getting that. And it was preparing me, and I was learning all these pop tunes to play at the hotel. We're doing like 3-4 sets a night. So I'd have to learn like tons. I remember the guy gave me like a list of like 100, 200 songs and said, learn this, learn these and memorize them. And I would like, holy shit. So I remember I was just sitting down by the lake, just outside Philadelphia in a place called Collegeville. And I was just sitting by the lake with my bass and this little Walkman, and I was just like learning like Chumbawamba songs and all that.
Yeah.
But if I'd stayed at Berkeley, I would have been kept on learning Charlie Parker songs. I would not have ever learned how to play the bass, because that's one thing a teacher never taught me at Berkeley, was how to play bass.
So you were just solo heavy, and it was all harmony and stuff like that?
All about that stuff. And I would go to my lessons, and the teacher would play piano, and I would just jam along, and you'd be like, great, see you next week.
Well, I guess that also kind of turbo boosted your interest in the instrument, because it sounds like when you were at Berkeley, because of all the competition and all that, I mean, that's the kind of thing, as you were mentioning earlier, that can make or break you. And so by having something like this, you know, suddenly becoming a kind of pop star kind of thing, it probably reinvigorated your interest.
It did, but my mind doesn't work like that. I'm very much with the wind. Like, if the wind blows me and I've decided I want to do it, I'm loyal. I'm very committed to that. Mm-hmm. So I don't really necessarily see the benefits at the time. In hindsight, I see them all, and then I can help other people with their decisions. But in the moment, I'm very spontaneous, so I'm not like, oh, this is going to help me do this. This is going to, oh, I've got my shit together now, so I can do that, and I just hang. I'm always
just going with the flow.
I'm always hanging on for dear life, man. So even when I was playing like Chumbawamba at the club, I'm still like, oh, what was that note?
Yeah.
I'm always hanging on, dude. Like, I'm never comfortable, man.
This is exactly what I was talking to Joe Hubbard about a few weeks ago, and he was talking about being in that uncomfortable zone. And it's while you're in that uncomfortable zone that you really learn, but you don't know it at the time because everything just feels uncomfortable.
Exactly, man. And you learn how to develop your own voice as well, because you're always winging it, because you're not necessarily copying someone's approach. You're just kind of
getting through
it. And through that, you make a lot of mistakes that you make a note of, like, I don't want to do that again. Or you, every now and again, you'll do something and go, well, oh, that sounded good. And then you'll keep doing it and blah, blah, blah. Not necessarily transcribing per se. And so in hindsight, I learned how to be a touring musician. Which is very difficult. I learned how to tour. I learned how to hang out with musicians. I learned how to do interviews. I learned how to at least pretend I'm confident, or I learned how to like hold myself. I learned how to play on stage in front of thousands. We're talking tens of thousands of people. Like I learned how to do that very quick. One of my first gigs was in front of like 20,000 people. Crazy, man. So, and I was like petrified, you know. So
Yeah.
that training prepared me for what I was about to get into when I got back. So that was like ultimate sabbatical from school. You know, it was amazing. I learned so much. And then when the thing burnt itself out, like none of us really wanted to do it. I was getting a hard time off my parents, and John was like, "You went to Berkeley to join that pop band, whatever." My dad's like, "Oh, John's so disappointed in you." So I went back to school, and when I got back to school, I was more confident. I had all that experience. I was kind of cool. And then I met Ollie Rockberger. He became like a very close friend of mine. And then I met Hiromi, and they became my crew, you know? They became my best friends. There's my gig.
Hiromi on your year?
She graduated, like she graduated 2 years after I did. So she was like just beginning when I went back. And same with Ollie, and same with a bunch of great musicians who are out there doing their thing now.
Yeah.
Like Moto, you know, a Japanese dude.
Yeah.
Steve Jenkins.
Yeah.
Yannick.
Well, Hiromi was my first proper exposure to you, hearing you with her and doing all that stuff. And that was where I first heard your legendary chops. So how did that come about? Did you just team up with her and that was it? You just started gigging?
Yeah, well, there was another great bass player from the UK who was in my class as well. It was actually my roommate, Tiago Coimbra. He was playing with her, and he was doing other things and this and that. And then she came to me, and she was like, "Hey, I've got these tunes. Like, will you play for my ensemble?" Because I asked her to play for my ensemble. I was like, "Hey, do you want to play for my ensemble?" And she was like, "Sure." And we hung out and we had a good time. And then she was like, "Hey, do you want to do my ensemble?" And she sent me. It was the music for Another Mind, like her first record, and she gave me all these charts, and I'm like, holy crap. So I learned the stuff, and we started jamming, and we had fun, and then I was playing with Ollie, and I was also playing with Dave Fuzinski. We became good friends, and then he gave me a gig. So I was committed with that. And then Hiromi went in another direction. She started playing with this guy, Mitch, who recorded her first CD, and then she got signed, and then Anthony Jackson did a couple of tracks. But then it came to go on the road, and she was looking for like a proper band who wanted to commit with her, and she knew I had the chops to do it. And she asked, "Would you be up for it?" I was like, "Yep." And so I started touring with her. My first gig with her was like a tour of Spain. It was just like I had like a couple of weeks' notice. She was like, "The bass player I'm playing with can't do it. He just got a gig with Usher or something like that, and he's gone. He's away doing that." She's like, "Can you do it? I'm under pressure." And I learned it, and we never rehearsed. And I never played with a drummer before, and the first time I ever played with a band was on the gig, and it was like a nightmare. It was the worst, yeah.
So at that point, so what year was that, roughly?
Probably like 2002.
Mm-hmm. Were you still at Berkeley at that point?
I'd just graduated, or maybe it was 2003.
So at that point, your chops must have developed then by that point, you know, when you were talking about earlier on. I mean, it was only a few years previous to that where you were feeling bad about your playing and, you know, and all that stuff going on. And so I guess at some point during that sabbatical that you were talking about, your chops must have really, you know, developed.
Well, here's the thing. They had developed in a certain way, but in a certain way because my mind was limited on what I thought learning was, like how to learn and how to convey what you'd absorbed. It was very skewed, and I still didn't get it. So my chops technically were probably smoking like ridiculous, better than they are now. But
wow,
my knowledge of how to apply stuff was not there at all. So I had no confidence actually. So with Hiromi, I was literally hanging on for dear life. And then when it was my turn solo, I would just play anything. I had no concept of the theory behind what I was playing, and I had no concept of like the correct chord scales. I was literally just playing what I heard and doing the old trick of like, if you play fast, people are going to be blown away, so it'll sound probably good to somebody. Like, that was my concept, man. I'm serious. And I was not good enough to get that gig, man. Not at all, man. I was nowhere near good enough to get that gig. And I kept that gig because of a couple of things. I learned how to hang out on the road. I learned how to travel. I learned how to be supportive. I learned how to work hard. I learned how to wing it. That's what I learned from them gigs in Asia on a much lesser musical level, but on a way more popularity level. You know what I mean? So it kind of weighed itself out. I'm playing for a lesser amount of people, but the music's more complicated. But I've got chops, and I can learn the music quickly, so I can kind of retain the music quick and get the basic parts down, and then just go for it on my solos. And then through, you see, Hiromi's a great teacher, and the drummer's also a great teacher. So trust me, every night I was told exactly what I screwed up and how I screwed it up, and I never want to hear it again.
Yeah.
Right? So most gigs, you don't get that. You know, you do the gig. Like, I've done gigs with famous guys since, and you don't get feedback.
Yeah.
Really. You just expected to be able to do the job.
Yeah, yeah.
But Hiromi, she's young. She's never done it before. She's controlling in that way. She's like writing notes like, hey, that note in the middle of like that 64th note unison, that's 800 beats per minute, that one note on measure like 89, like the 30-second note is a little too loud. Right? So she's like that. I'm serious. Like, that measure, too busy. This measure, not busy enough. This measure, I need a thicker sound. I need a chord here. So it's very specific. And then the drummer was kind of like this passive-aggressive. Passive-aggressive, but also aggressive. Like,
yeah, right.
You suck. Like this. Like, you're not good enough for this. Like this, that, this. He's not very accommodating to me at all. Like, he wanted Anthony Jackson on the gig. Don't blame him, really, to be fair. But Hiromi's like, no, I like Tony. Tony's great and all that. He didn't want me in the band. And I'm telling you the secrets now. So we had a tune called XYZ, and he'd be like, you know, you're not feeling it. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not feeling it? He was like, he's like, do you know it? Like, this is the passive aggressive.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I know it. Okay, sing it. So, all right. So I tried to sing it, and I couldn't sing it. And he went, yeah, you don't know it, man. And it wouldn't be like encouraging. It would be kind of like a bit harsh, make me feel bad. So I would go to my room and I would like listen to it, sing it, listen to it, sing it, listen to it, sing it, listen to it, sing it. And then next day in the bus, I'll be like, I'd sing it. He'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. And then I'd play it better, you know.
You know, it's so powerful that showing people, you know, when they've been saying things like that, you know, just proving people wrong. It can be such a powerful motivating factor.
Exactly, but not in a sense of like, ha ha, screw you, I'll show you. But in the sense of like, because I'm not confident enough or outspoken enough to be aggressive in that way. So I just take it and then deliver, because I think even when you're being attacked, there's always an element of like truth in there that you can take from. And if you can filter, because I had a harsh birth to music from like John, like I would say, like I wrote him a song, he's like, that's terrible, it's the worst thing I've ever heard, man. Have a good day, you know, like that kind of stuff. Or like playing in Bliss, where the guitarist, like one time we played the Beatles song, A Hard Day's Night, ding, the first note, like G or whatever. I would play like F or like D or something. Like big, you'd be like, and I'd be like, you just get his pick and flick it. Right? So that kind of stuff, that was my baptism, to be able to take criticism, not bite back because I'll lose the gig, even though that wasn't my concept. My concept is like, oh, I don't want to piss him off. Oh, I'm not very good. I've got to prove myself. I just got to be better. I've got to be better. So in a sense, I would be like beaten into submission to kind of learn what I needed to learn in a humble way, I guess. Hiromi has a lot of pride in her music, so she's not necessarily critiquing me because she wants me to be better. She just wants her music to be played right. Yeah. So I would just work on it, and eventually got to the point where we were like a family. Like, we loved each other, respected each other. He looked at me and went, "One thing about you, man, is like when you get criticized, you will go away and work on it." I was like, "Yeah, of course." You know what I mean?
So you built up all that that mutual respect through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't change people how they are. You know, all you can do is change yourself to be able to adapt to it and not be offended and not be so prickly and insecure. So there's a lot of room for growth from these experiences. I guess I could have quit and run away. And
well, it's the one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, you know, because I think maybe not most, but a lot of musicians go through this. I've been through a lot of these kind of experiences too, and I think you'll hear these kind of different stories, obviously, but those same kind of feelings that you get from certain, you know, gigs and experiences in bands and things. And let's say that we're doing videos on bass playing or whatever on YouTube or whatever. This is not the kind of stuff that people normally hear about, but it's the stuff that happens that's just as important in your development as a musician as any other thing, as any other, you know, practicing scales and doing all that stuff. I mean, if not more, you know, because it really, really changes how you play.
It does. It really does, man. Because you've got to satisfy others. You've got to represent other people's music the way they want it to be represented. I remember doing a record for somebody, and I did a solo, and I'm like, "Oh, I killed that solo, man." And they were like, "You do know it's not about you, right?" I was like, I hope they use that take. If the guitar solo is good, then it'll be that take.
You mentioned earlier about your DJing. Now, did the music that you were into at that point and all of that side of your personality and everything, has that had a direct influence on the music that you create, do you think, in your kind of solo stuff?
Absolutely. See, the thing is when I did my first record, really all it was I was like, okay, I need a business card. I want to move to New York. I need a business card, and I need to show some different looks and different styles. And when I went to Berkeley, I was very arrogant about what I listened to and why I listened to it. Like, I wouldn't listen to Eric Clapton. I wouldn't listen to this. I'm like, nah, it sucks. Terrible. Worst guitarist ever. I hope you never hear this and that. I never hire that. Asshole. But I was immature. I was naive. And I didn't really understand music. I just had a box of what I thought a great musician should look like. So I abandoned all of my previous loves, because I do love Eric Clapton, and I do love Michael Jackson, and I do love dance music, and Fuse exposed me to like ethnic music, like Chinese music, Turkish music, Japanese music, which I'd never heard of or thought about. Indian, well, that was more my John McLaughlin thing. Mm-hmm. And as I graduated Berkeley, or as I was about to graduate, I was like becoming aware that because I love many styles of music, that's what's going to give me my own voice. And every music's valid. And at the end of the day, you love what you love, and you shouldn't try to justify it. You should just love it and enjoy it.
Yeah,
because all music's as hard as any other music. It's just about what you love. It's just notes. You know, just because you put 3 notes instead of 1 note doesn't make it more complicated. It's just choice, really, that's whatever you're doing. Simplicity is very difficult, more difficult than complicated things. There's less to think about. You've got to be more creative with less.
Yeah.
You know, when you have all this complicated shit, it almost defines itself in a way that you're forced down a particular avenue, and it's like, if you've got a particular scale down or whatever, then it works easier in a way. So anyway, so I started to realize that music was beautiful. All of music was beautiful. So my first CD was really a kind of mismatch of like dance music, kind of atmosphere, like the drum and bass stuff, like the big sweeping chords, the sub bass effects, the jazz, the exploration of jazz music, the Yangtze, like the Chinese pippa sound, and it's all kinds of stuff. So I was like, okay, I need a calling card. I need to show who I am in all of these different styles. It wasn't really a bass solo record. It was more of a music. I was trying to be more musical, and but yeah. So then my DJing came back to it, and then in my next record, Chasing Shadows, I wanted to be more like, I really love melody, So I was like Burt Bacharach, things like that. I'm like, okay, I need to make. I love Pat Metheny. I was really into Pat Metheny at the time. I met people like Chris Dave and Lionel Luque and Gregoire, and I met all these guys. And there's another thing about being on the road so much. I met everybody, we were always opening for Herbie or playing with this guy or that guy or this guy. So I got to meet them all, and I would be like, hey, you want to play? So we just played and made things happen. I remember John said about my second record, he was like, you need more blood on the floor, Tony. Yeah. I was like, all right, cool, man. He's like, it's very safe. This is not jazz. It needs more of this. I wanted to tell my story because I was like about my back breaking, about going to Berkeley, about the ups and downs of your mind and all the spiritual things. And I wanted to do a biography of who I was. So I was like, all right, I'll do the blood on the floor bit later. I'm going to go spiritual for this one and tell my bio a bit. So I did Unknown Angels, where Mabel flew me to Paris for like a month. Me and like John Shannon, he was doing the record there, solo record. So he was doing some promo, some gigs, and he just stuck us in an apartment with him in the Bastille. I don't know, was it somewhere around there anyway. And we were there, I was writing and we were hanging out and getting into trouble and doing all this. And then I flew to India and finished the recording, and it was a beautiful experience. And that was my bio. Definitely not enough blood on that, but a lot of honesty, reflection, and people seemed to really enjoy that record. I sang. I didn't like singing, but the label was like, "You should sing, man." So I did some singing, and then I was like, "All right," it gave me another outlet. And then I did another album, Elevation, where I wanted to be more gutsy. And I was like, all right, let's do a guitar concept album. So John played on it, which is incredible. Red Beach from Whitesnake played on it.
Oh, right.
Mia Felder, Hode Tomiyasu, biggest Japanese rock star, like 55 million records sold, man.
Yeah.
Killer, massive star. I met him in Japan through Hiromi. He came to one of the gigs and came backstage and met us. And then when I did a gig with my own music there, I'm like, I wonder if Hot Day would come out and play with us. So I just randomly sent him an email and goes, hey, I'm playing at the Blue Note. You want to come? And because I was playing with Gene Lake, and Gene plays with Dave Sanborn. Yeah. And I know Hot Day's a big Dave Sanborn fan. So I was like, maybe Hot Day would want to play because Gene's playing and Fuse was playing, and all guitarists, or let's say respect Fuse. It's an acquired taste. He's a brilliant genius. So I was like, all right, Fusey's got a reputation. Maybe Hot Day will come out and at least watch us. So he came out and he actually played his guitar and sat in with us, which was a massive surprise to the audience because it was a special guest. Like he's like Beckham over there. He just came on stage and was like, I'm like, holy cow. And so I had all these cats and...
Well, it's amazing to think of the contrast between where you'd got to there, when you're describing all the dudes that are like playing on your records and stuff like that. Contrasting that with the start of the story where you went to Berkeley and you were, it was all horrendous. So it's quite a journey there, leading up to that point.
It is. It's a journey, man. And I remember, like, Mike Stern's also on that record. I can't even forget him because he's been such a mentor to me.
Yeah.
I think it comes, the bottom line is, my tagline is keep your dream bigger than your fear. We all have fears. Some fears will not get us off our couch. But if our dream trumps that, then we will get off the couch begrudgingly and we'll like wade through the mess.
So just after that, you'll have, I'm guessing it had been around that time that you started the Tony Gray Bass Academy.
Yeah, well, I started teaching quite a lot at the time, and I was a terrible teacher. And I would have guys come to my house, or I'd have guys come to the hotel rooms when I was on the road. And I found that my hotel room was really like, it was getting busy, man. Like I would do a lesson, and another one would come, another one would come, and I was like, oh, I gotta go, I've got a gig, and then I'll go to the gig, come back, and yeah, quick, all right, let's do another one. And I would do this, and then the next day, fly, land, the kids at my hotel, like, But I was not a good teacher, man. I was just kind of like, it was just money, and it was an opportunity, and I wasn't really thinking about it. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of, these guys are looking up to me, man. I have a responsibility that I'm telling them the right things here. But I hadn't really got a refined concept of how I practiced. You know, you can't go and tell someone to practice 12 hours. It's not really doable, you know? So I needed to refine my concept. But once I left New York, and I knew that Hiromi's gig was going to end, and I needed something stable, or at least my motivation was not money. My motivation was a combination of things. It was money, but it was also, my story is unique in that sense because I have naturally low confidence, insecure. I have a lot of fears. My mind will go and go and go. And then, as you know, or you may know, that once you start thinking about something, the outcome becomes worse in your mind.
I'm exactly the same.
You know, like everything just grows and grows and grows and grows. And all of a sudden, it's like you've turned this small problem into like the world's biggest disaster.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I can relate to most people's fears because I have them all.
Yeah.
I can relate to people not feeling that they're good enough and that they're running out of time and that it's just them that can't do it. And I've worked out how to practice in short bursts that get immediate results. So I was like, okay, I need to put a blueprint down. So I made a blueprint of like this whole structured system. Like, how do you get from A to B in that skill, that skill, that skill, that skill, that skill. And I started working backwards to the core of it. But then I was like, realized how massive it was. I'm like, Jesus, it's huge. Like 800 plus videos, man.
Yeah.
Like insane. And that's not even half of it, man. I've got the other half here, you know? I felt an obligation to really help people on that level. And I wanted to help people on that level because I struggled, and I don't like the idea that someone else struggles like that, because it's very heartbreaking to do what you love to do and then to be suffocated with fear and then to just give it up is like, it's really horrible, man. And music should be a joyful thing. It should be a positive thing. It saved my life for sure. And one thing McLaughlin told me, he said, I said, how do you do it? 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 He said, take care of music and music will take care of you. So basically, like, I wanted to help people overcome their fears, and I wanted to give them a system that they can work on and work towards and be organized and have goals. Goals are important. So I love it, man. I love writing. I love writing books. I love coming up with lesson concepts. I love practicing what I preach. Like, so I'll always make sure that I master something before I put it out there. And it makes me accountable because I don't want to wing things. I don't want to just tell people information. I think the proof's in the pudding. Yeah. So I like to demonstrate why it's beneficial and then structure my things around that. So I'm very passionate about it. I love to teach, man. It's my biggest passion, more than playing now.
So when you actually join up to the Bass Academy, I'm guessing from what you just said there that it's more of a structured single path rather than a lot of, you know, separate courses and separate individual things. Is it more of a blueprint single path?
Yeah, it's a single path with a lot of like forks, you know, because it's split up into like, there are a lot of elements to music, you know, there's like your technique, there's your ears, there's your different styles, harmony theory, fingerboard, like there's all kinds of playing through changes, but playing through changes in a bebop scenario as opposed to like a more of a modal scenario. You approach chords differently in the two different environments. So if you feel like your technique's good, you don't have to go that way. If you feel like you need to work on your soloing in a bebop situation, you go that way. If you want to pair that with that or this with that. You can do it. It's all customizable, you know, like what I do is I meet the students and I customize a schedule for them. So I'm like, okay, practice this for this amount of time, followed by this. And I'm kind of like on the journey with them. So yes, it's single path if you want it, but it can also be whatever you want it to be.
Right. One thing that the first thing that hit me when I very first saw you playing was your right hand technique. You are right-handed, aren't you? Yeah. Your picking technique. When did that develop? Because you've got some of the most dexterous fingers I've ever seen, and it's quite because you use you're not like straight wrist stroke, are you? It's more of a not claw hammer, but do you use floating thumb technique with that?
Yeah, I didn't know what these techniques were. I don't know what they were called. I didn't copy it off anybody. So I don't know how many people were doing this before. I have no clue. All I know is I had a good Japanese girlfriend with perfect pitch, and she would sit in the audience when I played, and she'd have a face like this. And then I would go back to my room, and she'd be like, "You suck. Your notes are not clear. I can't hear the note. It's totally nasty, like awful. Made me feel awful about myself. I'm like playing, like trying to impress her and all that. Like, and she's just looking at me sour. She just ate a sour grape, man." I came back to you when your notes are unclear. I can't hear the notes. There's no definition in them. This and that. So I was like, okay, story of my life, mate. You might see a pattern here.
Yeah.
It pulls me down to earth with an incredible thud. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, let's try to figure that out so that doesn't happen again. So I was practicing super slow, and I would be like crazy, like paying attention to every movement of both hands, like what's working, what isn't working, what's working, what isn't working. And the clearest I could get the tone is by doing the floating thumb and the claw. So I'm like this. Yeah. But I'm also muting at the same time with both hands. So both hands are muting at different points, and it's very like, it's like clockwork in a way. It's like synergized as you practice that way and as you develop, because I'm very methodical. So I will always practice something like 40 beats per minute up to like 240 beats per minute. And I'll do every incrementation in between. So it can take days and months and weeks to get through simple exercise concepts. But trust me, after them few weeks, you are like good to go with that, man. You know, everything's tight, everything's synergized, because you've really paid attention from a very slow tempo to a fast tempo. So every time you run into a roadblock, you become acutely aware of it. And then you go to the next stage and you start to find where your difficult spot is and then go back and build. So I would get to a point that would be difficult technically. I would slow it down to the slowest tempo, but this time build increments, higher increments. So instead of going 2, I'd go like 5. And then I'd find myself that I could leapfrog to the next level and then get stuck and then back to the beginning. But this time, 10 beats per minute. And I'd find I would always be able to leapfrog. And some of it was fatigue. So you're doing 2 beats per minute every time. The reason why you might not be able to do 120 beats per minute is because your arm's bloody tired by that point. Yeah. So I'll go back and do increments of 5, so I'll get there quicker, but I'll be ready to go to the next stage. So it's like that. And then eventually, your technique becomes solid all the time. Fast, solid, dexterity, tone, dynamic. Very much in control of that. And then I did a concert in front of her, and I was like, see you later. The funny thing is we broke up not because I had a shitty sound. We didn't get along. But she moved back to Japan. Check this out. I was doing a gig with Hiromi, like massive, like theater, like concert hall, like 5,000 people maybe. Quiet as a mouse, the whole audience. Hiromi's playing a song, like go nuts. And then at the end of the song, there's people clapping, and then Hiromi gets the microphone. And all of a sudden, there's like, you can hear the doors go at the back, and there's this girl walking down the steps, and I just looked at her and went, no way. It was a girl. She was late. Hiromi was like, hey, welcome, sit there. She was like kind of making fun of her a little bit, like he was coming in late to my concert kind of vibe. And she came and sat right front row with a little Gucci handbag and just sat there front row. And I realized who it was. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Just clip, clop down the aisle.
Totally, man. In Japan, where it's like everyone's like sitting there with a little teacup, like quiet, man, waiting for the performance. And Hiromi's like, hello, welcome to the concert. Have a seat. Take your time. Just trying to be funny and that. And I'm like, oh, we were all laughing. And then I'm like, no way. And then I got to show off my articulation, which was really satisfying. You know?
Yeah.
And then we went out for dinner and hung out, and she's like, oh, you sound great. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Because of you, actually. I love the community, man. I have to say, man, the bass community is awesome. I just want to work together with everybody, like you. I want to collaborate with people. I think the community is small, and I think everybody knows everybody. So the competition is kind of pointless.
Yeah.
You've heard of one, you've heard of the other one.
Yeah.
So yeah, TonyGrayBass.com. No, TonyGray.com is my website. You can find all my CDs and music and stuff there. I've got 5 new books written, getting ready to come out. Walking bass lines, modes, beginners, chords. I've got a really cool technique book coming out. I'm not going to say more about it until it comes out, because it's going to be like, and
it'll just say you need to get a girlfriend that that gives you a hard time.
Yeah. It's true, man. You got to be open to like getting your truth be told to you. You've got to be open to it. Criticism is the greatest thing. It's the greatest tool to learn.
Brilliant. All right then. Thanks a lot, Tony. That was fab.
Thank you, man. I enjoyed that.